Hello, this is Liquid New Hampshire, and I have my guest AJ from newly New Hampshire Youth Movement.
Yes, yeah, field organizer there.
We just met at a protest recently, and I wanted to talk about strategy and protest tactics because I'm not the most well informed about the subject. I had heard you talking about escalation and de-escalation at a protest, and I was wondering, what were your thoughts on how to have an effective protest, and what's the right level of sort of vitriol, I guess? What's the correct amount of vitriol?
Well, I mean, to have like a successful protest, like how I've talked to you before about like how Climate Defiance does things, where they make sure that like anyone who's attending in action has been to an in-person de-escalation training. I feel like that's a good remedy for a successful protest because like a lot of people when they go into things like that, they're like there's nerves because they don't know what's gonna happen. Like I feel like there's not nerves because they think like, oh, what I'm doing is wrong or anything like that. But it's like unknown. Maybe someone's never been to like a rally before. And like an in-person training beforehand is such a good way to actually like kind of put them in that environment. Because if you have enough people there, like you kind of pretend like, all right, these two people are like antagonizers. Like let's do a mock, like whatever, like run up of the thing. People are gonna be pulling on the banner you're holding and like screaming at your face, like.
I do remember I did at one point take Arnie Alpert. Do you know Arnie Alpert?
No, I don't think so.
Arnie Alpert, I'm told, very recently retired, but Arnie Alpert in New Hampshire for years was the person who did the nonviolence and de-escalation training.
Okay, yeah. Were they like a New Hampshire peace person, like
they
peacekeeper?
They were Clamshell Alliance back in the day, which was like a de-nuclear, like hippie movement, like
That's
way
cool.
back when.
Yeah, New Hampshire has some weird. Wait, can I swear on here? What is it?
I'm pretty sure you can.
Okay.
We haven't been taken down yet.
Yeah, New Hampshire's got some like weird shit like that. Like have you seen those buildings around with like like Oddfellows, like the Oddfellows
like
meeting room or something. There's one close to my house, like on Back Mountain Road, like right after you turn like go past Cumberland Farms from like 114. It's like the Oddfellows room number 104 or like something weird, and it's like it's some kind of I don't want to say like Quaker-esque because I feel like that's rude, but like you know what I mean. Like it's like a very like inclusive. Like I feel like they probably believe in some kind of higher power, but it's a good like it's within everybody kind of way, and like we're all weird. We accept everyone.
Universalist.
Unitarians. That kind of vibe.
That vibe is. I didn't know about that until I started doing protests and activism.
Yeah.
I never I maybe vaguely heard of them, but I thought they were like a fringe new agey movement.
Yeah.
And I show up and I'm like, oh, they're like 90% a protest hub.
Yeah.
And 10% a church.
Yeah. Which is so. That's so lit. Like, I love. I feel like religion is such a purposeful, good thing. It's just like the dogmatic crap that like can be derived from it and then be used to like create a powerful hierarchy. Like you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like there's like you can abuse the power of religion, but like religion at its core is it's cool to me. Like humans are susceptible to becoming like fundamentalists because of religion, but as long as you like stay away from that, like
I kind of like cool. I had a friend who was in AA, and AA gets a lot of criticism, some of which I think is warranted, but some of which I kind of like almost the religious aspect of AA, because I think there's something smart about if you're trying to recover, reminding people that there's something outside yourself that you're recovering for.
Yeah.
And so they ask you at AA to have a higher power, but they're like, well, but it doesn't have to be God, it could be your dog or something.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, weird phrasing, probably gonna alienate a lot of atheists like me.
Yeah.
But I get where you're coming from.
It's hard not to like alienate different groups of people by like being a certain way at this point, and I don't know if that makes sense enough, but like I feel like we've like babbled ourselves to pieces where our language doesn't really even mean the things that it's supposed to mean anymore. Like you don't know what someone's saying because they could mean 10 different things.
Right.
But
Especially
like,
on the internet.
yeah, especially on the internet. And like, I don't know, being able to like the higher power thing or whatever. I think that's cool because like the higher power, like it's the whole thing of like I don't know your ego and how that doesn't really exist because it's only in your head because you can't really exist apart from anything else.
You're talking
It's
about
impossible.
dualism.
Yeah.
That sort of a thing. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, like you're always like incorporated into the entire world. So it's like, yeah. Anyway.
And the religious left, they show out. That's one thing I've
Yeah.
noticed. Where I think Kent Street Coalition or the Poor People's Campaign,
Mhm.
a couple of those organizations, there's a few organizations that I look for, and
Mhm.
NHYM is also one of them.
Oh hell yeah.
Where I'll see events that are
Mhm.
protests on Facebook, and I'll be like, I'm not sure if I want to go to that,
Mhm.
and then I'll see NHYM Poor People's Campaign, and I'm gonna be
Yeah.
like, oh, there's gonna be 200 people there.
Yeah.
This is gonna be actually
Yeah.
an event, you know?
Exactly. And I feel like on that aspect of like having successful protests, like New Hampshire Youth Movement brings out a lot of people because our main job is to collect people's like signatures and information, whether it's like on a petition or we're doing like a huge get out the vote like pledge PTV card, like pledge to vote card thing.
Right.
And it's like honestly, I'm not gonna lie, sometimes I feel like it's a very bourgeois ask to be like pledge to vote because like we have been voting.
Yeah, that's
Shit's
been
bad.
we've been doing that. That's
Yeah.
not what's missing.
Yeah, but it's just like trying to get. Well, first of all, it's collecting people's information, and like there's these boxes at the end that you can check off like what you give a shit about, and then
Right.
we'll like hit you up like when there's a rally happening or another petition going around or
I
something.
used to sign every one.
Yeah.
Every single. I would sign. I would like just anybody invite me to things.
Yeah.
And then I can pick and choose which ones I want to go to and which ones I
Yes.
don't.
Exactly, because there's not a lot of like it feels bourgeois to ask people to do that, but in the end of the day, I know I'm not just being like, pledge to vote because our democracy is completely legit and like totally serves the people and represents us. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying
Right.
like, first of all, you should vote because if you don't, you're telling the government you don't give a shit how they're screwing you over, and second of all, we're gonna get your information so we can organize you because
Right.
like. That's what's actually like so our big target group is like people my age, like 18 to 22-year-old like first time voters, and like they will choose ignorance. They will choose blissful ignorance over acknowledging the problem a little bit and knowing they're not making a difference. You know what I mean?
No,
like you need to give them like a tangible or like visible, sensible, like real, like okay, no, you're part of the solution. Because if you just like bring people's attention to like all these problems, like bitch, fucking, we know. First of all, like we know, we learned how to barricade doors before long division. We're aware that shit sucks. Second of all, it's like we feel like about the last thing I said, like we feel like society has never really like served us before, even though it has. Like we didn't raise ourselves from newborn babies. Like
there's been some amount of collective service.
Yes, yeah, but there's so many people that are convinced this. Everyone's just very nihilistic, you know what I mean? And the only way to get past the nihilism is to be like, okay, well, if you don't think anything matters, like now you can make decisions and take the risks or do things that someone, who wasn't aware of how shitty everything is. You know what I mean? Like you can step out of the matrix now because you know. Like don't just stay there spiraling because nothing productive happens when you're just spiraling into despair, and that's hard to do, or hard not to do when you're alone. So another thing that NHYM wants to do is like show people that like no, like you're not just gonna turn 18 and have nobody in your corner like fighting for you. Like
you're
there's
gonna
people,
have mentors, you're gonna have friends.
yes, and support and like people fighting for you and just like a sense of belonging, like shining a beam of hope or something. Because like shit sucks.
Yeah.
Like it sucks.
That's one thing I try to advocate when it comes to protest is making it personally valuable to people, because I don't feel like the idea of how can we get people to sacrifice more. I hear that a lot. I went to the Goffstown Democratic Committee for a while. I ran for state rep, and when I was there, every single person there kept talking about how do we get people to pay attention more to like the state legislature, and they're like, why aren't people paying attention more? And I'm like, well, you gotta come to them. You can't just be mad at people for not participating. I advocate making politics more fun. That's something I try to do. I want to make it's serious issues, and because we know it's serious issues, we take them very seriously. I think it needs to be lighter so that more people will engage with it.
I agree. Yes.
Yeah.
No, you're preaching choir. Like, I want to do like I've organized one so far, and the only reason I haven't done another one since is because, first of all, like, it's kind of hard to it takes a second, but I booked this venue basically and had a local show.
Good job.
And advertised it.
That's hard to do.
It is it's just but I had help from a longtime friend named Marion, and she helped me a lot. But basically I advertised it as an anti-establishment acoustic shindig. So it's let's have a good time and be in high spirits, but we still hate the government together, but let's feel united doing so, because it's so isolating. Everything is so isolating nowadays, and it's fucking purposeful, because the bitches know if we all came together and realized oh shit, we can unite, they would not have their power anymore. They're so aware of that, and they've been aware of that since the birth of this country.
I had a friend I just talked to recently who was doing something that seemed so obvious, and I've never heard a single person mention it before. They're organizing the punk scene.
Yeah.
They're going to punk shows with a table and just being come out to protest. You're already here talking about the same political topics, and they're and it's working really well, because of course it is. They're punks.
They give a shit, And as far as getting people to care more and stuff, one of the things NHYM talks about, and I've said something about it, but they say, and I don't think they say this in an exclusive way. Let me just say what I'm gonna say. I preface too much, but
that's the internet. It's done it to my brain too. Every time I say something, I immediately respond to what the comment underneath it's gonna be preemptively.
It's broken brain. But we talk a lot about self-interest. Everyone should be doing things that serve their self-interest, and a rally about trans rights at the State House is in a lot of people's self-interest, either because they're trans, they're queer, their partner or friend or son or whoever it is, you know what I mean, someone. But also, at the end of the day, what the hell is a bunch of shared self-interest? It's mutual interest. We should, I want to be able to call it that, but it's hard to now in this day and age, because people don't pick up on that all the time. People are paying attention to what affects them directly, what impacts them, what they need to sacrifice, or whatever. But people have lost the concept of everything good that happens to someone else is something good that then happens to me and everybody else.
It's more connected than that. I love I recently, given the Israel-Palestine conflict,
we can just call it a genocide.
Right. I
it's
agree.
a fucking genocide.
I try to use neutral language on podcasts, but I agree. Given that there's conversation about that, I've heard a lot of people saying, especially on the pro-Israel side, saying something that I'm used to hearing, maybe more from the left. They've been saying things like, oh, well, you're not Palestinian, how can you go out and protest? About the protests for Palestine, how can you speak on this issue? You're not directly affected. I feel that logic goes against the entire goal of solidarity. We need to have, it's good that there are people here in the West that care about Palestine. That's a positive thing, I think.
It's totally a positive thing, and it's also you motherfucker, it definitely directly affects me, because I literally can't go through a single minute of my daily privileged, physically convenient life without realizing that it is soaked in the blood of the underdeveloped world.
Right. And you can't not see it. Like there was a
Yeah.
time where you couldn't see it,
Exactly.
and now
when
you
I was
have
a
to
child,
see it.
yeah. But it's like, okay, I'm not. Even when I was a kid, like some stuff was confusing to me. You know, like even like going to I went to this was pretty recently. I wasn't a child, but like going to vacation like in Mexico, like I went to this like all inclusive resort in Cancun. I didn't buy my own ticket. I was like, my mom and my grandma were going. I was like, yeah, I'll go with you if like I'm broke, so someone else like needs to get that shit.
Right.
But I ended up going. It was really fun, but it was also like, first of all, I was nowhere near like locals. You know what I mean? Like it's like there's this whole like strip of like it's just resort after resort after resort.
Tourism section.
And it's like all the workers there are obviously not white people. They're people that live in Mexico. They live in Cancun or at least near there, commutable. And I'm just like it was just like making me kind of sad, like not in some white savior way, but in a way that like I don't feel free when there's a single person who's being denied something. You know what I mean? Like
it's hard to feel good when you're literally like looking at somebody with brown skin waiting on you.
Yeah.
Like that's
and it's
not
like,
right.
Can you afford a vacation like this? You know what I mean? Because like if you're working here and you could do this, like you can afford something like this twice a year, then like okay, good for you. Like because I'm not trying to like frown on someone for being like, oh, I bet you get paid shit and you're poor. Like again, it's not like coming from some superiority thing. It's like, how am I supposed to enjoy my privilege while I know that it's a privilege? You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
That not everybody else, but there's so many fucking people that have to worry about where they can get a hot shower. Are worried about food. I've been like pretty broke. Like my family's never been like, I lived in Bedford a long time. Like I went to Bedford School District and like holy shit. Like I wasn't like a Bedford kid.
Compared to the Bedford kid.
Yeah, like
I'm glad you know. See, this is the nice thing about having a New Hampshire specific podcast.
Yeah.
Is the audience knows who the Bedford kids are.
Yeah. No, it's like it's hard to fit in with those Bedford kids, but I was never like home. Like I never had to worry about when I would next shower, when if I have to go without food for a whole day. Like that's never been a worry on my mind, and that's like people don't clock that they just like won the lottery of life by that. People assume that like those in less privileged positions, like either them like they directly did something to get there, or like they made a bad decision, or their parents made a bad, where it's like.
There's a word for it. I forget what the term was that I loved when I learned it. Oh, survivorship bias was the term. That's the term of like, that's where you like, an airplane crashed and you lived, and somehow you managed to come up with a way to think that you did it. It was you. Like,
but it was just fucking
or Monopoly. Luck. Have you heard the thing about they did an experiment where people play Monopoly and they give somebody visibly at the beginning of the game, give them an extra $1,000, and they tell them, I'm giving you an extra $1,000, and then that person inevitably dominates the game. By the end of the 2-hour game, the person they gave the $1,000 believes they did it mostly through skill.
Yeah.
Just the act of playing the game makes them think it was them, even though they saw themselves being handed $1,000.
Yeah. That's really interesting. That's like the whole like when rich people are like, yeah, I'm self-made. Yeah. Like, girl.
They don't see it.
Yeah, no.
You reminded me when you talked about when you were younger. I wanted to ask, were you, because you're so young and you're already so active, did you grow up in protests? Were you somebody's kid that they brought to a protest at any point?
Honestly, no. I wasn't. I was definitely raised by parents. Like my mom and dad were like 22 and 24 when they had me. And like my grandparents on my mom's side were like 17 when they had my mom. So like my grandparents became grandparents at 39 to me. Yeah, so it's like I've had like influences around me that were like I've never had like my mom and dad always voted Democrat. Like they were always registered independent.
It's a young family,
like
left-leaning.
Yeah, I was never judged for like being queer. Really, I got to dress myself. You know what I mean? Like it was very like it was a pretty accepting whatever. And I don't want to say that like only leftist Democrat people are accepting. That's not the case. But like, um, I was very much like my like. I don't want to say like fuel for justice because I feel like justice left to itself, it just becomes like vengeance, like left to its own devices. But my like fuel and like hunger for justice was like always like it was given to me because it's not like my parents sheltered me from anything.
Right,
Like they
right.
wouldn't be like they didn't take me to protest with them because I mean they were first of all like they were busy working, like
Right.
they didn't really go themselves, not because they wouldn't go but it's because like they're busy. But they, you know, I was never not encouraged to like pursue the things that I wanted to see in the world. Like
Right.
if anything, I was encouraged, but not so much so that like I went to protest with them. I think that honestly, a lot of people that are like parent age that do go to protest and stuff, like all the people that are like anti-establishment, like yeah, and maybe anarchists or like whatever, fuck this shit, punk, like those people are the people that were wise enough to not have children. So like I feel like there's like a whole generation of like younger Gen X, older millennials that are like really with it and fucking awesome.
Yeah.
But they knew that like bringing another suffering soul into this world was like not the move. So
Very strict antinatalist,
yeah.
are we?
Yeah.
I've been watching some very extinctionism, antinatalism stuff lately.
Yeah.
Um,
I'm very big on climate stuff and environment. Extinction is definitely on my mind sometimes.
I wanted to ask about that specifically because that was one of the sort of debates I've seen about tactics and protests. Is I was listening to a liberal podcast at one point, and they were talking about a far right protest, and it was very much an anti-LGBT protest.
Yeah.
And people had brought their kids, and the liberal response was like, "Oh, how it was like an additional horror that there were kids there." And my mind immediately was like, no, I think we should bring kids to protest. Like, I don't agree with what their goal is.
Yeah.
But I think, no, we should actually take a step back and say, no, it's good to bring kids to protest.
Yeah.
I think it's good to get people active at that young age.
I think there's a lot of, honestly, I think there's a lot of hypocrisy between people who are, you know, liberals or leftists or whatever they want to call themselves, and then, like, judging.
It's a very blurry distinction most days.
Yeah, like I saw this thing about like this shirt. This kid was like not allowed to wear this shirt somewhere in I think it was Massachusetts, and it said like there are only two genders. Like he was forced to like not wear that, and it's like, yeah, that shirt's fucking ridiculous and not true, but like literally scientifically untrue, but like. That's like straight up an infringement of free speech. You know what I mean? Like no matter how you cut it.
I felt that recently. I had kind of an argument at one point. It was a very soft argument with my mother because she's an HR person, and she had some guy at her work that had a shirt that was like "fuck your feelings" or something like that, right?
Yeah.
And she hated it. Yeah. She was like, I cannot believe this. And I'm like, are you sure there isn't some partisan, because she's like liberal-ish, right?
Yeah.
I'm like, are you sure there isn't like a partisan sensibility going on here where you don't like it because it's kind of conservative?
Yeah.
I'm like, and her reasoning was, you shouldn't show up to work with a shirt that's confrontational.
Yeah.
Or that says fuck. I don't think it actually said fuck. I think it was like, if my speech.
Oh, if my patriotism offends you.
Yeah, that thing, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And I was like, I feel like maybe it's confrontational. It's hard to say.
Yeah.
Sometimes confrontational stuff is how you have a community. Like I could also wear a shirt that says, if this flag offends you, with the trans flag on, right?
Exactly.
How offensive is that? I don't know.
To some people, it probably is, and to other people, it's, well, that's great. Like, yeah, it's very, like, it's, I don't know, like, sometimes I just get pissed off that, like, leftist, not even just organizations, but, like, we have the same, like, we do the same fucking shit that we shit on the other side for doing.
Yeah, all the
time. So often. Like, so often. I don't, like, I just, I mean, for example, I don't know. And now I'm trying to think of something exact, and
I mean,
I'm
I don't
having a hard
like.
time, but
One thing I dislike is, I guess, bird dogging is the term I've heard for it. That's like a
yeah.
weird. Every time I've told somebody that term, I
That
might be
rings
getting
a
it
bit.
wrong.
I don't know. That is a correct term, but I'm not like super versed on like what it means.
It's just the thing where you go up to a politician with a microphone and you say, "Piece of shit says what?"
Oh shit.
You know? And,
Yeah.
and they're like, "Huh? What?"
Yeah. You're
Yeah.
trying to catch people off guard.
I'm not sure. Like, I want to force hands
Mhm.
more than I want to just be mad at somebody.
Yeah.
Like, if we're looking at a politician, the goal is power. The goal is how can we force their hands. And I make a big distinction between holding someone accountable in the
Mhm.
sense of just kind of being angry at a politician on
Mhm.
camera, and
Mhm.
holding somebody accountable in the sense of at one point I know some people did a blocking off of a shipment of coal to a
Yeah.
coal factory.
I
That's
think my
actually
partner
forcing
did
your
that.
hand.
My
Oh,
partner
yeah?
like stood in front of a coal train. Yeah.
Yeah,
Like
that's, to me, that's epic. That's
Yeah.
like, they have to do something.
Mhm.
You've actually physically blocked an infrastructure.
Yes.
Whereas the talking to the politician, getting a good sound bite, that just feels like it feeds into this internet attention economy. to
Yeah,
me.
it's really hard with the internet, and it's like Climate Defiance does like their goal every action. Like we're not trying to convince people in the fucking audience like here to listen to the Chevron CEO talk about green initiatives. Like we're
Right.
not trying to convince these people to hate this guy or to like
Of
you know
course.
be off fossil fuels. I mean like obviously we wish that they would get off fossil fuels, but like at the end of the day, we're making a video for
Yeah.
people to see on the internet and either be like yeah, I guess kind of like I don't want to say like fuel rage because like when I spoke when I was a speaker, the like I say it, you can hear it in like the voice memo because I voice memoed myself. They asked me to like when I walk out like saying like if I could have done one thing differently, it would have been coming from a point like that wasn't so like doomsday-ish. It wasn't so full of despair and so angry because
especially because of climate despair these days, it
Yeah.
demotivates.
It demotivates. It doesn't do shit. It just makes it another problem that needs to be solved. When in reality, like I'm someone that believes like the oneness of the universe and like hearing the cry of the earth and you know like being stewards of the land like we're meant to be could be such a uniting, powerful like force of change like that literally eliminates all other like every category that we've ever created for ourselves
Right,
like because when you realize finally that you're just like everything else basically and
Yeah.
everyone else is just like you and we're all living on this same rock and we all you know we came from it depend on it our whole lives and then go back to it like that blurs the lines of authority. That blurs the
Yeah.
lines of party. That blurs the lines of who's your family, who's not. That you know what I mean? It's
That
just
sounds
like,
almost like social ecology type of stuff.
It
you know?
is. I read
Yeah.
a book called Spiritual Ecology, and it was like it was a compilation of a bunch of different works by like, you know, different scientists, different religious like leader type things, different like people who do specifically research on like spiritual ecology ideas,
Right,
but just
right.
like a whole bunch of stuff in it. I got it recommended to me through this author named Tom Wessels. He's from New Hampshire. I think he lives in Vermont currently.
That's cool. Shout out Tom Wessels.
Tom Wessels, he's really awesome. Please read his book, The Myth of Progress. It's an ecological take on our economy.
Okay.
It's like so interesting. Like it like our like neoclassical like economy like literally like goes directly defiant against like the laws of nature. Like
That sounds
it's fucked.
very up my alley.
Yeah.
One thing, this is interesting. RFK Jr., that guy who's running.
Yes.
Interestingly enough, his part of his platform comes from this guy Charles Eisenstein, and it's weird because most of the stuff I hear about RFK Jr. is about like anti-vax stuff.
Yeah.
If you look into his background, he's like one of those people who was like a spiritual green person, and then they just consumed too much misinformation.
Yeah.
Like his background includes this guy Charles Eisenstein who wrote Sacred Economics, which is a book about like it's not as spiritual as I thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
It's about the concept of ritualization.
Yeah.
So it's about like a different relationship to property, different relationship to money.
Interesting.
It's an economic book more than it is a religious sort of a book. But it was that kind of a subject matter. And I was like, wait a second, that's RFK Jr.'s running mate? This obscure guy that I'm a big fan of as an author? I'm like, that made me feel really weird about RFK Jr.
It's weird. It is weird. I mean, like, everything, like, for my job, like I said, I go up to people and I ask them to sign things, basically. And I also just, like, talk to them. Like, I don't want to be transactional whatsoever. Yeah. Like, I want to...
It's better to make friends than to just be in one moment.
Yeah, here, sign this. Okay, bye. Yeah, but, like, I've talked to... Like, at Market Square Day, when we were spot canvassing, I went to the Republican booth. I went to the booth that was, like, Soldier Solutions with all the, like, Second Amendment rights stuff up. Because, like, well, first of all, I wanted to talk to them because sometimes I get concerned that people who are like, yeah, Second Amendment, want their guns to defend against, like, people, like normal fucking people, but I think the majority of people who give a big shit about their Second Amendment are people that want to make sure that guns are on our side, like, against the government.
Yeah.
And, like, I'm fucking here for that. I don't give it, like, like, I don't think I'll ever be able to be comfortable with, like, a gun in my house, like, for my own fucking sake, and also just because, like, guns are scary. But, like, I should know how to shoot one. Like, I would, I feel like a lot of people underestimate, like, okay, you might hate it, and it is scary, and it sucks, but, like, wouldn't you rather know how to defend yourself? But anyway.
I went to learn how to shoot with a group called the Pink Pistols.
Yeah.
You know about the Pink Pistols?
Yes, I've heard about them. I've been in contact with a few people that are, like, very, very, like, comfortable to be around and are, like, self-defense, like, gun rights oriented kind of.
Absolutely.
Cause yeah, like, we shouldn't be judgmental. It's just like how, you know, conservatives are trained by the ruling class, people, you know, using them as pawns to hate gays and hate trans people and hate, you know, whoever, because that hatred and that prejudice creates some sort of buffer for them, like, that maintains their relations of wealth and power. Same thing for the Democrats. Like, as long as we keep hating people that love guns and, you know, hating people that, I don't even know,
whatever, like, the redneck culture is. I hear it a lot of times, and obviously there's parts of redneck culture that I hate, but most of it I love. I feel like my people are like gay rednecks.
Yeah. So at the end of the day, gay rednecks are like, in like rural living people. I mean, I don't want to say always, because like at this point everything is so fucked. Like, there's a Dollar General every mile. God, you never know, but like, I don't know. I'm here for rural life. Like, yeah, buy local. Go to small stores. Like, don't drive that much. Like, I don't know. Like, that's pretty awesome. Like, good for you. Like, I don't know. Usually if you have a rural property and you have land, then you might actually have a garden. Great. Like, that's great. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. And like,
all the
I like hunting.
People I know who do get out so much harder than like some of the more city people.
Yeah.
Like, there's like a lot of city people who get out, you know, they get out to what you might call a visibility, right? They get out to a visibility. They don't so much get out to more direct action. They're not routinely organized and consistent.
Yeah, and to get people routinely organized and stuff, I mean, that's the goal, but like, it brings us back to the only reason someone's going to do that is because if they feel like it's directly affecting them in some way, basically.
Yeah.
And kind of a lot, too. Because, like, you know, there's a lot of things that directly affect me, but I can't go to every protest all day, all the time.
Yeah.
But, like, I go to the ones that I can, and I don't know, the things that directly affect people, or the things that people think directly affect them, are such a small sliver of the things that actually do. You know what I mean? Like, how we're talking about everything being connected and all that. Like,
And sometimes the things that directly affect you are bad. I'm
Yeah.
I'm a straight white guy in a suburban middle class home.
Yeah.
The things that directly affect me, it's probably fine for them to affect me a little bit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, I get that. I mean, I don't know. It's really, like, it's hard to say this shit and not feel like I don't know, like a privileged white person, but I'm literally talking about it. Like, I can't, like, it's so hard to live a life of such ease, such privilege, such power, like, and not constantly think about all those without it, you know?
Right.
And I really, like, I try and, like, assure myself that, like, there, like, the suffering and death that happens around the world, like, it doesn't happen in vain. And people say that shit all the time.
Yeah.
People say it, but it's like,
I don't.
is
buy
it
that.
true? Yeah. Like,
I mean,
is
I
it
believe in
true?
a machine god.
Yeah.
So that's the reason we die for me
Yeah.
is the machine god. But
I just, like, it's just shitty. Like, even when I just see a fucking, like, roadkill, like, I'm like, damn.
I hate that.
Yeah, like, I just, like,
I want to have a New Hampshire animal rights on. They haven't returned
yes!
my call.
Stop! I could get you connected.
Oh,
with
you can
them,
get me
probably.
connected with them?
Yeah, because I
Oh,
talked
hell
to
yeah.
them at Market Square Day. I have, like, some info and stuff. Yeah, because they're cool. They're doing this, like, vegan cookout. Actually, it might have already happened, but I don't know. They're cool.
I'm somebody who I eat meat. I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm like a flexitarian or something.
No, yeah,
But then I'm
too.
also trying to. I believe in a policy of like a vegan New Deal.
Yeah.
I wanna remove subsidies from animal agriculture.
Yes, fuck animal
like,
agriculture.
Absolutely. Like I
Fuck
wanna
that.
like if the prices of meat slowly start to rise and I can't eat it as easily anymore, I'm fine with that.
Yeah. Yeah, and, like, here's the thing, like, I said the thing about, like hunting or whatever, like, I'm here for that shit. Like, hunting deer is, like, probably the most sustainable way to be an omnivore, like, to eat meat in at least where we live.
Yeah.
Like, because...
And I have more respect for hunters than I do, like, factory farmers. Probably.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like, I don't want to kill anything, personally, but, like, that, like, the one hot dog that I ate the other day probably had, like, 70 different dead animals in it. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
It's like, so it's like, at the end of the day, I would rather, like, yeah, grow a pair and shoot a deer and use the whole deer and, like, not feel like I'm, you know, not.
How mad can I
profiting
really
off
be
of,
at this person who's just doing what I'm doing more visibly?
Exactly, more visibly and more sustainably. Like, factory farming is fucked. Like, animal agriculture is one of the biggest, if not, like, I know fossil fuels is, like, the biggest, but, like, animal agriculture uses a lot of fossil fuels in the process, like, low-key, and then also gives off so much methane and, like,
I've
you know,
heard debates,
chemicals and...
cows are fuel, which is the worst.
Yeah.
And if there's debates, then cows are still pretty bad.
Yeah, it's bad. It's bad. Like, 900,000 cows a day are slaughtered in just the United States.
Wow, you know that off the top of your head?
Yeah, I only know that because, well, my partner, another shout out, their name's Bug, in their sculpture class, or no, it wasn't sculpture, it was some sort of art class where they were doing almost like a performance art type thing, and it was like the theme, they voted on a word theme, and it was milk. That's their theme. And so they wanted to do, like, something about, you know, in honor of all the cows that die every single day. And it's just, like, bringing me back to the death and suffering thing. Like, I don't want to think about that. Like, you know, and it's, like, it's not so much that I don't want to think about it, and so therefore I won't do anything about it, but it's, like, I don't want that to be the way things are. And I'm not just going to be able to console myself for the rest of my life while living in this kind of society. So my only other option is to do something with my life to change it. And I just watched that movie for the first time, which, holy shit.
What movie?
Amazing movie. Lucy with Scarlett Johansson.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's
like
one of my favorite
2014.
movies of all time.
It's so fucking
It's so good, yeah.
It's like, because first of all,
it's post-humanism. It's animal rights and transhumanism at the same time.
And the biggest part of life, like the biggest reason things are alive, is to pass down information to like the next thing. Like,
absolutely.
And so that's, when I get all anxious and start spiraling about everything that's fucked, like I try to do that radical acceptance shit and be like, look, I'm doing what I can do. Like, I'm passing down, like I'm in every way, shape, or form. I'm trying to educate, and I'm trying to like live my life a certain way that is aligned with what I feel like is right, and also, yeah, try and make a difference in the world as a whole. Cause
make sure everyone is suffering as little as possible until we get the machine god.
Yeah.
This is a bit of a topic change, but I did want to ask you about. I went to a protest at one point with Extinction Rebellion.
Word.
And so I went out with them, and I did not love what I was a part of.
Okay,
because they had just handed me a sign.
Yeah.
And like an edge of a banner actually with like 10 other people. Which I was happy to volunteer. I always volunteer for everything. And they handed me that, and they're like, okay. They start waving me across the middle of a bridge. It was a Granite Street Bridge, right in the middle at like 5 o'clock traffic. During a green light, they waved me across. They didn't tell me I was doing that.
Yeah.
And they waved me across and then stopped me in the middle of the road during a green light during 5 o'clock traffic on Granite Street Bridge. So everyone is honking at me and almost hitting me at one point. And A, that was not fun for me as an individual. But then B, I'm also not a fan of that tactic personally. Because the message it sends is that, hey, normal person driving home from work during 5 o'clock traffic, you're the reason the planet is dying. And I'm not sure I agree with that. I don't think that they are the reason the planet is dying. I think that's the politicians. And I'm in favor of what you might call even more radical tactics. I'm all for get a megaphone outside of our, Supreme Court Justice's house, which a lot of people on the internet freaked out about.
Yeah.
I think they're a Supreme Court justice.
It's in our fucking ball game, dude. Like, people in this country, like, poor whites that used to, like, rebel and shit, we used to fucking take the sheriff hostage. Like, we used to go to the jail and, like, with crowbars and break out our friends. Like, we used to burn down rich people's houses.
I'm not sure you're watching Dukes of Hazzard hard enough.
But, like, yeah, no, that's doable. And I agree. Like, it's not those people that are single-handedly doing anything, like, that detrimental to the earth at all. I definitely think that, like, inconveniencing the average person can be done in a way, like, I feel like it could be, like, carried out in a way that can maybe get the message across to that crowd, like, we're not talking about you, but we're trying to get your attention. Like, we're trying to get you to pay attention, but we're not saying, like, fuck you.
Yeah, and I think getting news attention, I'm much more in favor of getting news attention too, right? Or City Hall. I love going and protesting outside of City Hall.
Those assholes, God, I hate those people.
The people at City Hall?
Yeah, people have been calling Chrissy Contour, like, in this group chat that I'm in, Chrissy KK Contour, like,
oh, okay. I don't know her. I don't know that name yet.
She's one of the aldermen. She, like, had this big stink one time when Girls Inc. came in, and they were talking about, like, bathrooms and stuff, and she was being, she was basically trying to make the point that, like, only biological, like, XX chromosomed people should go to Girls Inc. and, like, be able to use their girls' bathrooms and, like, blah, blah, blah. Like, fuck you, Chrissy. Like, fuck you and your spa, whatever you do. And then fucking JKL, have you heard, Joseph Kelly?
Yeah, Joe Kelly Lavasser. I know that name.
He looks like a mad lunch lady.
I've heard bad things.
I like lunch ladies better than him. Insult to lunch ladies, comparing it to him. But he's running for, like, congressman, like
federal. He's going on a higher level.
Yeah,
he's working his way up.
It's laughable to me. Like, unless he's, like, in the ears of every, or, like, and unless he's, like, lobbying a shit ton for his campaign or, like, with powerful people, he's not. Everyone hates him. He's not gonna win. Anyway, though, yeah, fuck those people. Yeah, City Hall is. Yeah, I did it. I went to a lot of, like, BOMA meetings, Board of Mayor and Alderman meetings to try and propose a ceasefire resolution.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I testified a few times. it's just like disheartening the way they seemingly don't give a single crap. Like they're like picking at their nails, like staring at the ceiling. Like meanwhile, like there's someone like crying in front of them about their family who's like dead across the So it's like fuck y'all. But
at some point, I want to talk about resolutions in particular and focus in on those. I think that's a subject I want to talk about at some point because I've seen some. I'm not sure that I think that resolutions do anything because it's literally a verbal statement from a local government. And I've seen resolutions. There was one that went viral where people did a resolution in support of Taylor Swift.
Oh my
Have
Christ.
you seen that? Like it was, and then somebody was like, "Why are you wasting the government's time? We have important things to be talking about."
What the hell?
And they responded to that person like, "You a hater." And then they had some sassy lady be like, I recuse you of being a hater." And everybody cheered. It was terrifying.
God. Have you seen the movie Idiocracy? Like we're living in that shit. Like that is now. That's crazy. I mean, I used to be a huge Swiftie, not anymore because I'm disappointed. Like how can you get yourself to be a billionaire but don't use your platform for like anything except encouraging like white woman mediocrity, basically.
I'll be honest, I'm not a big fan of the platform responsibility sort of logic of the digitine. You know, that's what I've heard it being called. I've also heard like block party.
How do you feel about it then?
So, I mean, my feeling is theoretically, normally, I would say inaction is the same as action, right? They both have the same effect. If there's a trolley car problem, I would say inaction is the same as action. But I think that there's a difference when we're talking about how much is an individual person like doing. Like we're talking about showing up to protests and trying to show up to as much as we can, but nobody can be at everything. I think similarly, I'm not a fan of canceling people for inaction because they have a platform. I also think that the argument that they're pop singers, they shouldn't have to have, like it's nice if they make a statement, and Taylor Swift has made some positive statements.
Yeah, she's stuck up for good things in the past, but like it's not like it's been risky for her. Like
No.
I think the riskiest thing she ever did was post that picture of her with like the Biden-Harris cookies, like last like election president. Yeah, she like basically she didn't endorse Biden, but like literally, but she posted that picture of like obviously she's not voting for Trump.
Even that's not risky.
No, exactly.
Right? Because it's Biden-Harris, which is the compromise position. My parents voted for conservative the whole life. Voted for Donald Trump and then voted for Biden. So it's very not risky.
I know a lot of people whose parents specifically voted for Trump the first time and then was like not doing that again, but like didn't want to vote for Biden.
I don't fully understand what they saw
the first time.
Trump that they then were surprised by. I think the media just said enough stuff about dumb things he was saying for long enough.
Probably.
We appear to be blurry. I'm not sure how long we've been blurry. Have we been blurry for a while, you think?
Maybe. I don't know. Probably better off for me.
That is okay. I might just have to post us blurry, but that's all right. I think we've done an interview. I think this is time. Do you have anything you want to plug? Is NHYM have anything going on?
We don't have any events going on yet. I really, really want to start some going on because, like I said, like people that like our target demographic is very apathetic about everything going on right now and nihilistic about it unless we give them a real legitimate way to be part of a solution. Like I said, they're not going to want to acknowledge the problem. They would rather just forget about it than feel like, oh, well, I'm thinking about it, but like I know that what I did didn't actually help. And so like, I'll be posting flyers around once I get another venue booked and another thing happening. It probably won't be through NHYM, but I'm just going to do something.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll shout you out on Facebook or whatever. Whenever you get another venue going.
Word. And the only other thing I should plug is just like, I don't know, look up deep ecology. Like try think about that stuff, y'all.
Google Murray Bookchin.
Yes. Yes. Cause like at the end of the day, I think you can't you can't force people to practice something or believe something or think something or feel a certain way, but like you can always lead by example. And like,
and they'll learn.
Yeah.
If people learn information, they act on it.
Yeah.
Typically, you know,
Yeah.
I feel like educating people tends to work.
Yeah, it's all about education, honestly. Not all, but it's very largely education. I'm hoping to maybe start like pamphleteering, kind of like.
I want to do some tables, just go out for the podcast, even. Just
I
with
was
a table with just pieces of paper or something.
Yeah, I low key I've thought about going out with a table and just a sign, because I've heard someone else do it before, where it just says "talk to me."
Yeah.
Like, just come up and fucking talk to me, dude. Like, I don't know.
Or do a change my mind. One of my favorite things was I saw a YouTuber did a change my mind. You know?
Yeah, with like the something.
But they flipped it around. The Steven Crowder chamber, they flipped it around. So when they changed their mind successfully, they flipped it around to the other side and had the other people change their mind.
That's so awesome. Yeah. Well.
All right. Yeah, this was a great talk.
Yeah, thanks
this
so
is
much
a great
for having
interview.
me. Maybe I'll be back or something. Oh, we're not blurry.